I hope this one's a little bit more lighthearted. Well, I mean, I know for sure it is going to be. Because today I was reminded earlier of this line that I once actually told my mom. Um, I just kind of came up with it on the spot that God made everyone an artist of their greatest aptitude. And I don't know, really where that was inspired from. I looked it up and it's not a quote anywhere else, so I guess I came up with it, but it's really beautiful because um, there's so many things that you could possibly be good at, and it's impossible to be good at all of them, obviously. So it adds a layer of beauty, I think, to people that everyone is given aptitudes naturally. We don't come in as blank slate template characters as if we were some Sims or something. We come into the world with certain predispositions, certain things that we're just naturally good at, natural advantages. It's like a stat tree in a video game, right? And in some sort of RPG game where, some people are intelligent, some people are strong, some people are, really tall. But a lot of it's also just mentally as well. Like, are you good at art, right? Can you visualize things? How do you think? Stuff like that. And there's basically infinite aptitudes that you could possess, and I believe everybody has multiple, right? So it's like perks or traits again in a video game where we've all just mentally got things that we're good at, um, or things that we have the potential to be good at if we aren't yet, right? That's why they're called aptitudes, not necessarily like you're not just gonna pop out an expert, but people are naturally advantaged to learn certain things quicker and better than others. Um, which is why when I I hear from my peers and stuff that, oh, you're playing chess in class and I'm sat in the front row paying attention and you seem to understand it better than I do. Well, it's really hard to explain to them that I'm I'm just naturally like a better learner when it comes to math, without making it sound like I'm just saying that I'm better than them, if that makes sense. But it's true, and I mean, I have a really good example in high school. I took many AP classes and I do enrolled, but in AP chemistry, I had the most chill teacher ever. His name was, well, maybe I won't say his name, but he was an amazing teacher. He was so cool, but he polarized his students because he had his own unique teaching style. He loved what he did, and so he wasn't just some textbook guy that read off slideshows. And so some people hated him, but people like me who are creative learners, we loved him. And he let me just play chess all class. Occasionally, we would like pause class to watch like the Braves play because he's a Braves fan, in baseball, things like that. So he himself was a very authentic and unique person, um, and he respected everyone else's uniqueness and authenticity, and he encouraged it. And I got an A in there, um, and a 5 on the AP exam. I'm pretty sure. So I just had a great time in AP chemistry. It's probably my favorite AP class that I've taken out of the list that I have. Whereas in AP US history, we were basically required to take Cornell notes, and they were graded. And some people loved that. I didn't because it required me to just sit and watch what our teacher was lecturing on the whole time and take very restrictive notes. Cornell notes file or follow a very specific style, and that wasn't great for me. And you might think like, oh, well, you're playing chess and chemistry, you're not retaining any knowledge, you're not paying attention. Versus in A push, you were encouraged to pay attention. The problem with that is that, I mean, I got a B in A push, I think, an A or a B, but I got a 4 on the AP exam, which is still good, but I didn't enjoy it as much, and I don't think I learned as much. I didn't do as good on the AP exam for that class because I wasn't allowed to learn the way that I learned best. And um, I absorb knowledge mostly like through hearing it, and that's why I could be playing chess and then be listening to my AP Chem teacher and do better then. There's also interactive labs and stuff which helped, but do better then rather than just I'm sat bored and extremely unstimulated in a push, and so I can't focus and the words blur together and my as I'm hearing them, that kind of thing. Um, it wasn't, it didn't work for me, and so I I'm naturally good at, I mean, a handful of things. Intelligence makes you good at, a lot of things academically, but you have to know how to pinpoint basically how to access and maximize like those particular aptitudes, like academic aptitudes. Because if you put me in a situation where I have to follow like a specific, style of learning, like if you make me take notes, it's not going to work because not only are you not letting me learn in the way that I would like to, you're kind of forcing me to conform to another one, and so it's having a basically a reverse effect. It's counterintuitive. Um, and yeah, I just think I don't know. I guess it's a form of self-awareness that I think everybody should strive to get to just understand yourself, how you learn, and also what you're good at. But kind of circling back to the whole idea here is that a lot of people get their value just from being like comparative, right? They say, "Oh, I'm the best at this," or often, I think more often, really, it's I'm not as good at this as this person. Um, and it's a lot of negativity and tearing themselves down, and it creates like stress and anxiety that oh you're not good enough. It can lead to things like imposter syndrome and stuff like that. But I think as a principle, you shouldn't be comparative to anyone but yourself. And some people are just going to be better at some things than others. But what I need you to understand is that the word choices of, well, the word choice of artist, right? In my quote, that everyone is an artist of their greatest aptitude. You shouldn't necessarily be obsessed with being the greatest at something. You should be obsessed, if you're going to be obsessed at all, you should be obsessed and you should be passionate about whatever you are good at and you love to do because you see beauty in it and it is a form of art. I think, pretty much anything could be considered a form of art, right? Uh, Obviously, there's what we, I guess, commonly define as art, ceramics, sculptures, paintings, just drawing, that kind of thing. Um, but chess is a form of art. Music is a form of art. Cooking is a form of art. And it kind of just branches out infinitely, right? Anything that you do well and you're passionate about and you love doing can be a form of art. It could be a form of beauty, right? Because mastery of something is a beautiful thing. Um, but the basically the appreciation for that beauty can basically just be instantly nullified if you try to be comparative with it. There's a lot of people that I know that are really good at things like analytics, I guess. Among my peers, there's a lot of people that are good at analytics. I know some people that are great at coding. I know people that are better than coding or better at coding than I am, in certain languages and things like that. Um, I know people that are great athletes and whatnot, but there's a fine line between, pursuing constant self-improvement, which I do agree with. I think you shouldn't let yourself get complacent or stagnant. I think you should always be, becoming a better version of yourself. But there's a fine line between that and then basically putting yourself down by comparing yourself to someone who is the absolute best in like whatever you're doing. Um, And that's an unhealthy relationship to have with that person that could be motivation, for you, or like a role model. I'll give you an example. Um, in chess, I have a handful of figures, but International Master Levi Rosman, who runs the Gotham Chess YouTube channel, um, he's on this whole thing about trying to become a grandmaster, right? And he's been very honest and open about his mental through the process, because his mental is his weak link. He's gotten winning positions against some of the greatest grandmasters in the world, um, but then doubted himself and overthought and lost time, things like that. Um, and that's his biggest barrier in becoming a grandmaster, is because he has kind of a bit of imposter syndrome of, like, he doesn't think he's good enough. And so I take Levy as inspiration because I would also like to be a titled chess player someday. It's a cool little side quest I'd like to do. But I don't go and put myself down because I'm not as good as him. I mean, one, he's older, he's been playing for longer, he's put more time to it. Um, but like, just because I learned how to play chess at 5 and some of these grandmasters learned how to play when they were 3 and 4, that doesn't give me despair. I don't think it's impossible to, you know, succeed in chess. But that's genuinely how some people treat themselves. They're like, I can't cook as good as Gordon Ramsay, so what's the point of even trying? And it's just like, nah, you you have your own internal process and your own internal, like, growth rate, I guess I could say, that you should pursue. Um, and there's beauty in being able to be content with your own, personal growth rate. Um, that I think if we just focus a little more inwards and stop being so comparative, there would be a lot more just appreciation and recognition of the beauty of these things. And a lot of them is the little things. There's beauty in the friend who is attentive to everyone's, like, all of their friends' love languages, right? Because that's a time commitment, and that's emotional intelligence, and that's caring. Um, and they love others in such a way where it's a form of art, I would say. Um, if you love so strongly and you love your friends in that way, maybe you also love romantically. Of course, you love your family, I hope. Things like that. Like, that's what I'm getting at when I'm saying anything can be artistic. Anything has that bit of beauty, that you can appreciate, because I think those are, all these little pieces of humanity that often just kind of go neglected, or unconsidered, or just are on the low end of the priority list, because, like, culturally, it's there's a lot of pressure to go and work, be independent, buy a house, um, find your spouse, and then do your thing, right? But if you just have a look internally and you pursue your aptitudes, which, just to kind of lay on a bit of context, or I guess some foundation, I would basically assume that your aptitudes are what you are both naturally good at and also love doing. Um, there are some things that I'm naturally good at that I just don't like doing. Um, like, things that I've learned, like the Java programming language. Like, I'd say I'm pretty good comparatively at Java, but I don't like it. So there's things that you could be good at and not like doing. There's also things that you can like doing but not be good at. I don't want that to be, really a barrier to you, because if you love something and you like doing it, then you can become an artist of it, even if it's not naturally something that you're, like, just gifted in. But I think everybody is gifted in some things, at least. Everybody's got a couple of skills, a couple of perks, a couple of traits. Um, and I think it's a big part of why everybody is just so uniquely themselves. And that's why we're infinitely valuable, is because nobody is, you know, mentally the same. I think I've said this before. I'm just like, bodies look similar. There's only, there's a limited number of eye colors, even though there's, beauty in the shades of them, and no pair of eyes is the same. But, At the end of the day, you can, I guess, if you wanted to kind of know, like, dull the beauty of eyes, you could just say, oh, okay, there's a handful of colors, things like that. But the most, how do I say this? The most undisputable uniqueness and beauty, I think, just comes from who we are mentally, if that makes sense. Just that, you know, I can have blue eyes, and my homeboy can have blue eyes, and maybe we're about the same height, but just mentally we're so different, and that kind of thing. I think that's where the most uniqueness comes from. What I like about that, though, is the ability that we have to just relate to other people. That we can share pieces mentally with many other people. And I'm not talking about the people that conform to like a belief system, right, and do that for identity. They're like, oh, maybe it's politics. People that make politics their entire personality, that's not what really I'm referring to. I'm referring to the, you know, people that are like, oh, I love when people, come to ask me for advice because it makes me feel like they, can trust me, and that I'm, a source of wisdom on whatever this subject is that they're coming to me for advice in. The fact that I can say that's true for me and then relate to my friends, um, who are sources of wisdom in other subjects as well. I think it's just so beautiful how we can all be uniquely our own person. Our mind is its own, and it's like no one's ever been mentally you before, and no one ever will be mentally you. You are just the most unique, perfectly unique, mind version, I guess. You're just you. I don't really know how else to say it, but that we could be infinitely unique in that way, but then also be able to relate over certain details in basically the mosaic of our minds. Um, and that's art. So, I don't know. Just wanted to voice all that. Hopefully, maybe someone needed to hear it. Someone needed to hear that they're infinitely valuable because uniquely, they're basically a unique combination of skills and passions, right? I think passion should underlie, any skill that you pursue at least. You can have a skill and then not use it. I guess that's fine. Can't use all of the skills you have all of the time. That's pretty hard to do. I'd say it's impossible. So you can't do that. But if you're not passionate about anything, I just don't really think you're living. There's a lot of people my age here in university where it's just like, what do you care about? And they don't know. They don't have an answer. It's like, oh, what are you deeply passionate about? They're like, they don't have like the depth to them. I jokingly, with my friends, I'm like, there's a lot of bots. There's a lot of NPCs. People who just genuinely are shallow. And that kind of hurts, for me because, I don't know, I became a pretty, I don't know, I gained a lot of depth, right, over time, just from learning through things like pain and just receiving the wisdom of others and whatnot. Um, so I've received a lot of depth, and I hope I become an even deeper and more passionate and more emotional person. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of people that live with no depth, and I think that's a bad way to live because it's like, in a way, I can understand because those people evade, you know, um, a lot of like the passionately negative emotions. Like they evade passionate anger when someone wrongs somebody or when somebody says something that you don't agree with, things like that. Um, they avoid or they evade um, the passionate um, annoyance you get when somebody disrespects something you love, things like that. Like, sure, they're more temperate, I guess, if that's a word you could use to describe somebody, but I think they also miss out on just the passionate joys of being able to be part of a loving friend group who are spiritually bonded and things like that. It's like I don't know. I feel like if you're not passionate at all and you're just kind of floating, um, you're like neutral, and I don't know. I wouldn't want to be that way. I can say that confidently. Like right now, I can say that confidently that even though the largest pains in my life have come from allowing, myself to be, grow in my depth, my emotional and mental depth and things like that, um, that I would have not felt a ton of the pain I've felt had I been a more shallow and dull person. But I mean, I wouldn't want to be a bot or an NPC, just to avoid, right, the pain of losing love. Because, I mean, if you're not a deep person, then you're not really fully loving. You're not doing anything fully, I would argue. I mean, and I mean, I guess you don't really develop the depth until you know approach adulthood and sometimes and that kind of thing. And obviously, as like a 6-year old, I'm not just sat there getting philosophical, sitting, sad, contemplating like the meaning of life or something. I don't know. Maybe I was doing that at 6, but I just think even with all the pain that depth brings, right? All of the very deep negatives, I wouldn't trade that for all of the deep positives that are out there. Even though I'm currently on the losing side of it, right? I'm currently on you know the depression side of not having on average a great time here, but the beauty of just certain moments, right, that I can really hold on to. The beauty of seeing my friend baptized in the Jordan River back in high school when we went on a mission trip. You know, I'm glad that I was able to feel so deeply in that moment because that's a positive memory that I can really hold on to. And things like that. So I guess this was a two forked conversation, um, of be a deep, passionate person in something, you know, just believe in something, truly believe in something, um, and care about it. And I mean, don't be a horrible person. Don't believe that like everybody should die or something. Don't be crazy, but just believe in something and be passionate about it and love it. And also, you know, spend some time investing in yourself, in your aptitudes. Find out what you're naturally good at. Build up the skills that you can, right? That you're advantaged or predisposed to build up. Um, Basically, level up your character. That's what I would encourage you to do. So, but you're an artist. All of us are. We're all artists of whatever God has made us good at, and it's up to us to cultivate those skills and those aptitudes, and to then use them basically to generate beauty to the world. Um, if I just stopped playing chess, I wouldn't. There wouldn't be any more beautiful games that I've been a part of playing. Or if I stopped doing math, like analytics, there wouldn't be. I wouldn't be generating any more, beautiful regressions, logistical regressions or something like that. That kind of thing. So here's a better one. If I didn't, study like the Old Testament, then I wouldn't have absorbed a lot of its, helpful lines into my mind, and I wouldn't have been able to come up with them off the top of my head when people come to me with, issues. Right? I wouldn't have been able to have been as helpful of a friend, as supportive, and helpful and I guess wise, right, to pass on that wisdom to them. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't cultivate my, reading of scripture. So if you're like me and you don't get, you're horrible with self-motivation, um, then do it for the people around you, right? If you want to be beauty in the world and you want to spread beauty and love, then do that through whatever you're good at. Be beautiful through the things that you do. Because I think, If you're naturally beautiful, that's cool physically, right? But you can bring so much beauty to the world. You offer so much beauty. You can. You have the potential to, through the things you do. So pursue being a beautiful person. And that doesn't mean, you know, change yourself physically necessarily. I would argue that I'm saying not to. You know, don't take that as physical beauty. Take that as, I don't know, what would you call that? Mental beauty, maybe? I would say mental beauty. That becomes external when you practice it, I guess. But pursue that. Whatever you want to call it, pursue that. And be beautiful to the world. Um, I guess that's all I got. Just wanted to kind of throw some of those things out there, be a little encouraging, be a little happy, right? Make a little happy video, because why not? Um, but as always, I love you. You're infinitely valuable. I'm glad you're here, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.